Meeting, I think it was last year at a prayer meeting in Bradford. I'm Dave Patterson. I work for Leeds Food Aid network and work for another project called Unity in Poverty Action. I think it's part of our role to chair the network as part of that project. Unity in Poverty Action has been around 5 years. Leeds Food Aid network was officially established, I think, in January of this year. And we do lots of different stuff to help coordinate food aid provision in the city. Coordination is really important. And I'm just going to literally go through the next 2.5 minutes what we do. Hand over to Catherine from the East Leeds Food Bank. She's going to speak for 2 or 3 minutes. Then Gareth's going to give you the same kind of spiel. Chris, Matthew, Nice, or anyone else wants to contribute, then they can do. We're going to take questions and then we'll finish. I know you're on a very tight schedule. So as I say, work for Leeds Food Aid network. And here is a diagram of some of the stuff we do. There's lots of stuff going on in the city. There's at least 6 different forms of food aid provision that I believe are taking place. The most known in the national media will be food banks. We have 8 food banks from everything I can tell, and another services on top of that who actually do added food parcels as an added service. Food drop-ins, or soup kitchens as sometimes known. Street outreaches, lots of people going out on the street to give food to the homeless. Different forms of social enterprise. You may have heard of the Real Junk Food Project, very well known project, started in Army and now got cafes in Hyde Park and Hare Hills. And you've also got much more informal forms of food aid in terms of parish or food pantries. There's lots of different stuff going on, and it's really important that we value every form of food aid provision. Food banks get talked about a lot, but we want to value every single form. Lots of churches have been involved in that kind of provision, lots of Christian organisations. Leeds Food Aid Network is not specifically a Christian initiative, but there's lots of Christians involved. And I guess as a Christian myself, I would say that God sees all that different activity that's going on, and we want to value that. Very briefly, we focus on good communication, so we want to see people talking and interacting, and that's with anyone and everyone, so even this, what we're doing here today, is a form of communication. But within that, we want to see effective signposting from, and if you look at the top part of that diagram, you've got NHS Leeds, Job Centre, /housing, different faith groups. Whenever someone comes into contact with someone who's got a problem around food poverty, it's really important they can signpost or refer someone to effective provision. And that's something that we help to do. We have a document that's a 4-sided document that helps people to do that, and we can share that if you're interested later on. But signposting and referrals is a really important part of the network. We're always working on that and how we can stimulate more effective signposting. Distribution of food, obviously fair share is a very major part of that. How can we distribute food around the city to where it's needed? We tend to have a lopsided kind of thing where in certain parts of the city there's a lot of food, and in other parts there's not. Obviously fair share is really key in trying to inspire good, effective distribution of food across the city. And finally, food poverty is not just about your immediate needs, it's about your longer term needs as well. How can we get people signposting on in places where you can develop skills of training, education, get effective housing, find work, voluntary or paid, deal with your health needs, deal with an addiction, deal with mental health issues. So I, as a project, are always trying to find ways in which we can stimulate food providers in how we can learn and how we can signpost on effectively. And the more we can do that, the more as a city we can tackle food poverty more effectively across the city. Great to work with Leeds City Council, the Welfare and Benefits team. That's really good. And it's a privilege to work with so many different people, agencies, food providers, who are helping to tackle food poverty. I could say a lot more, but I'm not going to, because we're very limited on time. I'm going to hand over to Catherine, who is part of the East Leeds Food Bank. She's just going to talk briefly about what she's doing in the frontline capacity.
Okay, Catherine Fitzsimons, currently Vicar of the Church of the Epiphany in Gipton, involved in Food Bank from about 3 years ago, when we realised that we needed to set Food Bank up across the city, and John Casey is here, who is part of that whole city-wide view. I work with East Leeds. When I moved to be Vicar of Gipton, it felt important to help deliver that on the ground. So today, I had a phone call from Shakespeare School. The family liaison worker wanted 3 food parcels for families in her school who she was really worried about what was going to happen to them over the weekend. She got my name because that's what people do. East Leeds Food Bank has probably the least developed of the 4 food banks in the city, but we're working quite hard on it. Currently, it's got 2 outlets, one in Gipton, one in Seacroft. We're hoping to open one in Lincoln Green. In order to open a food bank, We need a venue. We need volunteers. We need about £1,000 to get things like a computer, shelving, scales, not rocket science, those small things. We've had staffing issues. Everybody who is part of Food Bank currently is volunteers. There are people like me who as a vicar does it, but most of the other people are volunteers. We have just started working with South Leeds Food Bank using their project manager to help East Leeds develop. Currently we've got about 30 volunteers working with us in what we do. We have a warehouse in Oxford Place. We've developed links with referral agencies across East Leeds and across the city, and we have volunteers who do supermarket runs, go into schools, and also help deliver the service on Tuesdays, Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon. That's where we are at East Leeds in 2014. We're hoping to go to Lincoln Green, Halton Moor, Osmond Thorpe, and hopefully a couple in Hare Hills in 2015. Lots of prayer for those of you who pray. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Gareth. Sorry, I'm going to put the thing in my pocket.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to say welcome to the new Fair Share in Leeds operation. It's very, very new. Your very first visitors here because it's only opened on Tuesday. So Peter and with his volunteers yesterday did a great job in setting up and getting some food in here, ready to start next month. I'm just give you a bit of background around Fair Share for those who don't know what Fair Share do. So Fair Share Yorkshire has been operating since year 2000 as an independent charity and today has 19 regional centres around the UK. And we were originally established as a project within the homelessness charity Crisis. And Fair Share aims to help vulnerable groups suffering from food poverty within the community. And the way we do that is looking at what the scale of the challenges are in the UK at the moment. So a huge issue at the moment is food waste. Some huge numbers there. 362,000 tonnes of food waste occur in retail. Relatively small amount in distribution of 4,000 tonnes. 3.5 million tonnes of food is wasted in manufacturing and some suppliers. So it's a huge, huge issue. So what Fair Share do is try to tap into the suppliers, tap into the manufacturers, the retailers to try and rescue as much of that food as we can and bring it technically to these sort of facilities. So the food you see here, Kellogg's especially, is part of a new relationship with Kellogg's where we should be getting roughly about 5,500 boxes of cereal a month from Kellogg's. And that is overproduction, and what we're working at the moment is looking at that cereal moving into schools around Leeds for school breakfast clubs, where they don't already exist. Again, the food here is all surplus, it's come from Tesco supermarkets, the pallets behind you is from York and it's from Nestle. So we work with roughly about 200 suppliers to get as much of that food as we can, and our challenge is how we move it more efficiently, where do we store it, and how do we process out right back in. And why do we do it? We do it because there's food poverty in the UK. There's just over 13 million people live in relative poverty, 7 million people are affected by low incomes, and 5.8 million people are classed as living within food poverty and challenging food poverty issues. So what are Fair Share doing in Leeds? So we're working in partnership, as we do, with the Leeds Food Aid network. St George's Scripts have been a great supporter of ours in the last 9 months trying to establish this. And that's the picture that was taken during the summer of the entire Leeds Food Aid network. And we're all working together to try and address those issues. So how are we going to do it? So this Leeds Food Centre based here, it opened yesterday, and it will provide the food and drink supply for food aid providers across the city to support the work they deliver through their services. Initially, we're going to open for 2 days a week, on a Monday and a Thursday, for food aid providers to select and collect the stock they require. So the volunteers will come in here, separate the food down into usual amounts, take it next door, and all the charities, organisations, schools will come along and take the food that they require back to their premises to feed people. A really simple model. And we're anticipating that up to 20 organisations will be included, and this number could rise as the food supply is both sustained long term and also the further need is evidenced as well. And we're also looking to increase the range of food to include fresh produce such as meat, veg, dairy, and that will support organisations such as your lunch clubs, your soup kitchens, and your breakfast clubs. That's the work that Fair Share has been doing for the past 14 years from our base in Barnsley. So we supply fresh food. This is the start of it, and we'll open to that from next year. We're also providing a food parcels and emergency service. There's lots of organisations that are already doing this service. We've heard from East Leeds Food Bank, but we also want to help out as well in emergency if that provision can't be met. So a facility will be provided for referral partners to make a direct request here to Peter, the coordinator, for a food parcel. The referral partners will assess the needs of the vulnerable person and determine if a food parcel is beneficial, and the parcel can be collected the same day. And there's a citywide team of volunteers which will be recruited from the voluntary sector and the faith groups who will help prepare food ready for collection and also distribute it around the city. And the food parcel request could also be forwarded to one of the existing food aid providers collection, which means the client could also benefit from further local support. FareShare are really big on working in partnership. We've got lots of partnerships that work really, really well. And one of the opportunities for us here in Leeds is actually to work more closely with the manufacturers and suppliers in Leeds. So places like Asda, Symington's Foods, which are just across the right, Arla, Dairy, Marks and Spencer's and Hayes Master Bakers have all pledged some support to us here in Leeds. I've already mentioned about Kellogg's. Kellogg's want to support this breakfast cereal initiative, and that's what we're looking to. The challenge is how do we move 5,000 boxes of cereal to 276 schools in Leeds? It's a big challenge, but I think we can do it. And finally, obviously our partnership with St George's Crypt, and they've supported this initiative and they've offered to continue to support us by providing a vehicle and a driver to move food around the city and also to support future food collections from the public and local businesses. So that's us. That's where we are at the moment. I say it's only opened 2 days ago. It's all in its infancy, but over the next few weeks now we'll see lots of activity in here, lots more food coming through, lots of organisation benefiting from this sort of facility, which is actually unique for the country at the moment. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Gareth. And just, I don't know if Chris, Matthew or John Casey from the Leeds Food Bank or Chris Fields from St George's, want to add anything to that at all?
I would like to say something actually. I think when a child goes to school hungry and can't learn, that's not fair. When a mum can't feed her children and believes she's a bad parent, that's not fair. And I think if we bring food to those people who believe they've no aspirations and dreams, because being hungry is all-encompassing. Nothing else matters when you're hungry. And if we can alleviate some of that, it starts to make things a little bit fairer. And I think the word fair share comes in really well for that. And that's all I've got to say. We just give thanks that Leeds is in a position now to alleviate some of that food poverty with the food banks, with the food kitchens, with really good-minded people all over the city. I think we're halfway there. And who knows, in a couple of years' time, we may be all patting ourselves on the back and saying, what a good job we all did. And I think we're making history. I really do. Thank you.
Anything to add, Matthew, at all? Brilliant. John Casey, anything just to add?
No, I thought what Chris just said, hugely eloquent. I couldn't want to add to it.
So we've got about just under 10 minutes. I don't know if you've got any questions at all for any of us here who are involved in either directly frontline work or a bit of the non-frontline coordination stuff. I don't know if there's any questions at all.
So when you say it's unique, is that because of this particular partnership? No other city does that kind of thing?
From everything I know nationally, and you know more than I do, nationally, I don't think the term food aid is used that much, and I don't think there's that much coordination trying to look at any form of food provision that assists people in a state of food poverty, to my knowledge. I hear stuff around food bank kind of networks in Sheffield and Birmingham, but I'm not hearing other stuff regarding that broader emphasis, which is so important. I've St George's Crypt here for 84 years. So the idea we say, well, actually your main functions are dropping on 5 days a week, we're just going to kind of sideline you, that's just not going to happen here. And I'm not sure that's happening in other cities from what I know.
I think it's also, I mean, obviously having FareShare here and the food distribution network is hugely important for the food banks, but it'll give us an indication, probably the first time, the numbers of people that are dependent upon food aid. We don't know. We've got some, Trust have got some figures, but they tend to be for Yorkshire and Humber, and we don't really know how bad the situation is in Leeds. So through the work that Gareth's going to be putting in place around this, we should be able to get much better information about the demand.
We've got figures for 6 months with different like food parcels, individuals fed by food banks and meals, and kind of sandwich batches, but that's only 6 months, so it's going to take time to get.
You know, when you say with 200 and something schools and you need to get the cereal back to school, what do they do? Do they feed the children there, or do they give them to take them home?
They actually feed them there. So the schools, there is a lot of breakfast clubs already set up where they open from about 8 o'clock in the morning for the children to eat. There is a difference between a cheap childcare setting and actually a breakfast club that's set up to feed people that are not eating breakfast. And those are the areas that obviously will be looked at first, the areas of deprivation, but the idea being that the actual breakfast is actually prepared on site at the school. And in some places there's some work going on around actually inviting the parents along to that session as well. So there's more closer link between the school, the parents and the children.
Is that available to identify children at that school, or to all the children?
It is, yeah. That's what we've got a meeting next week with the schools to look at how we do that and how we actually, target some of those areas where that work can do.
I mean, lots of things are developing in schools. Is one that's literally just come in the last month, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Partly because Fair Share's only just got in, but yeah.
I suppose the point I want to make is when I see the statistics you put up about people in poverty, people are vulnerable. What you were saying about kids going to school, not having a square meal. If I say that as a politician, it'll immediately be ignored as, well, one side or the other. And yet I strongly feel we're losing the publicity battle in terms of just how much poverty there is, and that people who come to food banks genuinely are in need. And nobody comes here because they want to come here, they come because there's no alternative. And my question to you as the people who are working at the sharp end really is, how do we get that message better across, that we have a society now ever more divided between those who have and those who have not. The have-nots are growing rapidly. And there's a real ethical and moral dimension to all of this. And I don't know how we can get that message across more strongly.
I think it's a good question. We try not to get too political. I think it's about individuals that are involved in the Food Aid network taking that on and working with people like yourself. The former bishop, welfare change is a huge thing for people. The former bishop was incredibly proactive and played his part in the House of Lords in particular. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing, Councillor Bruin, and I think we all need to wrestle with that. But I hear
Good. Picking up on what you've said, Peter, the thing I didn't say was that I'm both sad that I have to do food banks and furious. Absolutely. And how do we take the fury and the anger and the scandal that we have to have this? It's great that we're working in partnership. I've spent years working in the city trying to work in partnership. This is fantastic, but we should be furious that this is what we're working in partnership on. And that is not a political question, it's a moral question.
And that's why I say, I feel exactly like you. I'm inwardly outraged by the whole fact that we've got 25 food banks. We congratulate ourselves how well we are managing them and putting everything together, but to have them in this age, this country, is a total scandal.
don't know if you've got any other questions.